Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with part 67 of my series, Ecclesiology for Sedevacantists, based on Dogmatic Theology, Volume 2, Christ Church by Msgr G. van Noort. Continuing exactly where we left off, page 190. The Roman Church, the traditional church, has apotolicity of government. It is united to the Bishop of Rome, who by a never-interrupted series of predecessors reaches back to St. Peter, upon whom Christ built his church. This succession of Roman pontiffs right back to the Prince of the Apostles, despite the quibblings of a few hard-headed people, is a fact so plain as to be beyond cavil. Once this fact has been established, it follows that the bishops of the Roman Catholic Church, the traditional church, are the genuine successors of the Apostolic College. Why? Because they are united to Peter's successor, or the chair of Peter, in those times when we don't have a pope, and are acknowledged as honored by him as the sole lawful inheritors of apostolic power, or by the bishops who were acknowledged by popes, or by other bishops in turn acknowledged by popes. You can go back how far you need to go, you see. And under the policy set, as I showed in Lumen Gentium, that episcopal consecration alone is sufficient to convey the role of governments in the church, as well as the power of orders. So they are lawful, they are legally recognized, and they are recognized by Catholics. So, with good reason, then, can we echo Augustine's word, "What holds me in the Catholic Church is that succession of priestly bishops which descends from the very chair of Peter the Apostle, on whom our Lord bestowed the office of feeding his sheep, right down to the present day." And that's us. That's nobody but us. You see, other people have things they call popes, but they're not. We are more honest. Just because we don't have one doesn't mean we can't have one. It just means we don't. And that will one day be sorted out. Corollary. Since all the other Christian societies took their origin by separation and desertion from the Catholic Church, all men who are converted to the Church, however numerous they may be from any particular sect, are correctly said to return to the household of the Church, for they return to that house from which either they themselves or their forefathers had gone out. So when you come to traditional Catholicism, you come back to the church. You are returning to the church. You are not in the church as long as you're in any of these other sects and schisms. Now, part 4. Application of the mark of holiness to the various churches. Page 191. Proposition 1. Neither the Photian nor the Protestant churches, and not the Novus Ordo either, possess the mark of holiness. Proof. No harvest of extraordinary or heroic holiness appears in either the Eastern or Protestant churches. It is a fact that until recent times of persecution, religion in the Photian churches had grown rather feeble. Their organizations and societies lacked both vigor and a spirit of piety. Many times they become devoted to political rather than religious purposes. After their separation from Rome, they ceased to produce any genuine saints whose sanctity can be historically documented. As for the Protestant churches, we do not at all deny that many of their members worship God sincerely and lead good moral lives, but the point here is that these people do not possess holiness to a heroic degree. By abolishing religious orders, the Protestant churches totally uprooted the very way of life dedicated to the pursuit of perfection. They have never emphasized the practice of the evangelical counsels, poverty, chastity, obedience. Consequently, relatively few Protestants dedicate their entire lives and energy exclusively to works of religion and charity. Nowhere can they point to genuine heroes of sanctity. More striking still, the history of original Protestantism brings us face to face with two hard facts. The very founders of Protestantism, Luther, Calvin, Henry VIII, would hardly be classified by disinterested observers as outstandingly holy men. B. The immediate results of the Reformation, according to the testimony of the Reformers themselves, was not an increase in holiness and morality, but just the reverse. And it's the same too for Vatican II. I mean, the people those fathers from the Rhines who brought that thing about, were already known to be liberals and modernists and so forth. There was no piety among them. There's no heroes of the faith. There's no people who would have died for this modernism. The ones that were dying, were being persecuted, were the ones that didn't want to go along with it. The conservatives who always voted against them, who wanted to keep things the way they were, who opposed the whole everything radical and new about the Vatican II agenda. The Cardinal Mindzenskis and Slipiers and people like that. They were with us. They were never with the Novus Ordo. So we can rightly lay claim to them. They were traditionalists, affiliated with Lefebvre and Thuc and Des and so forth. So, and not with the Novus Ordo. Now, they didn't know. Many of them were in prisons. Some of them died before a lot of this history took place, but their affiliation was with us. We have the saints, too. You see, that's the only place you're going to ever see that scale of holiness is in traditional Catholicism. You won't find it anywhere else. And it may be rare here, too, but it's non-existent everywhere else. But you also remember, too, you have 2,000 years of history of lots of saints. They, one and all, to a man, to a woman, to a child, believe, teach what we believe and teach. And quite specifically, do not believe in Novus Ordo. I mean, think of even as late as Padre Pio, okay? He may not have known, understood all of what was going on. He didn't understand what had happened as far as Paul VI losing his authority. But he was able to say, after being forced to do not even full-blown Novus Ordo, was able to say, don't ask me to do that again. And, luckily he was never asked to do that again, you see. And that's just one tiny example of somebody that's with us and not with them. But I'm sure you'll find others, including some of our founders. And I truly believe, that the bishops who gave us Lefebvre and de Castro were true saints. And I think it may even turn out that Thuc, although he made some mistakes, they were the honest kinds of mistakes that saints could make. So, it may be arguable as to whether the holiness is extraordinary or not, but that they were holy is beyond dispute. As a matter of fact, continuing here, present-day Protestants who are well-versed historically in the facts of the Reformation era tend to emphasize not the holiness of the original reformers, but their contributions to the development of the spirit of liberty, the freedom of men from authoritarian control, the recognition of the dignity of the individual conscience, and so forth. Well, of course, they couldn't very well point to Luther as a shining example, now could they? Or Henry VIII, or you name it. I think that's enough for this. We'll continue in the next.